respect to optimization of sustainable practices, be it energy reduction or be it GHG reduction. With that said, today's webinar is just a conversation starter to understand how various use cases can be used as far as AI and ESG is concerned. I wanted to introduce you all to all the key people who are going to be an integral part of today's webinar. With that, I would request my colleague Siddhartha to take over this conversation ahead. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Siddhartha, and I head product development at Snowkap. Me and Sriaditya will be taking you through a short deck where we go through some practical challenges faced in ESG and how AI can be used to solve those. If you can just move to the next slide. So from our experience working on the ground in ESG, the single largest challenge we faced and we've seen ESG teams face within organizations is collecting data. Data is often scattered and unstructured within these organizations. By unstructured, I mean it's available in different formats, different systems, and it is not fit for purpose in its raw form for use cases such as reporting, deriving insights, or even target setting. And we think AI has come in a big way to solve this challenge. If we just move to the next slide. What AI can do is solve this challenge by using a combination of NLP and OCR for document extraction, analysis, and inject that into a ESG data management system for calculations, right? So if you look at a live use case that we're doing at the moment for a large retail company, they have hundreds of company operated retail facilities across the country. Now they're wanting to collect grid data, right? So if you look at collecting grid data from hundreds of locations manually, it would take an enormous amount of time. So this is where we're using AI to extract that information, attribute it to the right locations, and compute scope 2 emissions at scale in the fraction of the time that it would normally take. We go next. One of the other pain points that we've seen companies face is that there's growing regulatory pressure. There are new regulations coming up, such as EU DR and CSRD and BRSR. There are more than 50 ESG specific regulations, either global, regional, and industry specific, that have been introduced in the recent years. If you just look at some of them, CDP is global, CSRD is EU specific, and then there's CBAM and EUDR, which are commodity specific regulations, right? What happens here is that ESG teams spend a lot of time using the same underlying data sets to prepare reports in multiple formats. This causes inconsistencies, errors, and a lot of manual effort. If you just take one example, energy consumption and renewable, this is a disclosure that is required in GRI also, BRSR also, and now ESRS also. If you just look at health and safety, there's again GRI 403 where it's applicable, BRSR Principle 3, and also ESRS. So the point is that the same underlying data set is about 80% common within these multiple frameworks, and how can we make that data set much more interoperable, right? This is where we can use AI. AI can very smartly understand the data set, map it across different regulatory standards and frameworks, and automate the data checks, the data gaps, and consistencies across frameworks so that you have a consistent disclosure across multiple frameworks with minimum manual effort in doing things like data validation, data checks, and gap remediation. With that, I would like to hand it over to my colleague Sriaditya, who will take you through some more interesting use cases around ESG.
Thank you, Siddharth.
Thank you.
I'm Sriaditya. I'm part of Protiviti ESG team, and I'll be taking through some of the slides which talk about how we could leverage AI in terms of regulatory changes and updates. So today, as we speak, there's a whole lot of ESG regulations, standards, frameworks that are in play, and organizations with cross-border operations, they are really struggling to understand how to keep up with them. And this is where AI can play a very important role. In my past capacity, I have worked with organizations, built solutions, and we have built a very similar solution where we used NLP and machine learning algorithms and prepared a AI solution which ultimately goes across the web, understands which regulations are important for which companies, how each regulation may affect a particular business unit in a particular geography, and ultimately help the compliance and the ESG teams in alignment with the risk teams to stay on top of what regulations are coming, what are in play, and how are these going to affect them. For example, in TCFD, we generally talk about a transition and for physical risks. So the AI models can be trained in such a way that they could understand which regulation have a impact on transition risks and which would have a physical risk and which would have a impact on how companies report and what they have to report and how they have to report. So ultimately, it is not just about keeping track of those regulations, but using AI to help you understand what those regulations really mean, that actual translation of those regulations, and also making prescriptive recommendations on how you could use it for yourself. This improves the decision making. Imagine you doing this manually. This would have taken ages, but with AI, as Siddharth said, many of these use cases can be done within a fraction of seconds. So this is how you stay agile on a go. Moving on, while we talk about AI, we talk about a whole lot of automation. Today, a lot of products similar to Snowkap, they go and tell the product, their value proposition is we will automate the data collection to reporting process. So what do we really mean by that? So one is it is all about uh, structuring the data in a certain way, and AI helps you there, as explained by Siddharth. And also it also streamlines how ESG data management is really done. So when we talk about ESG data management, one of the important aspects before any form of AI conversation happens is how is your data looking like? Is it really there? Are you in control of your data? What is the data quality parameters are you really looking at? And the ultimately the conversation spans to data governance and who and how within an organization does it. So ultimately, that's where AI also comes in play. Using ML as in machine learning algorithms, training those models. Today's solutions are built-in widgets on AI, which can do a whole lot of data validation. Earlier, all of this, any form of data validation used to be done by the corporate sustainability team, who is reaching out to various business units across the world, trying to capture the data, normalize the data, ensuring that they are only capturing one data point against a particular KPI, and standardization, ensuring that the data needs to be captured in a certain way. In terms of data quality, whether the data is balanced, are we capturing also the good and the bad of the ESG performance, and how complete is the data when it comes to computing the a KPI using various data points. And these are the basic fundamentals that any organization is solving today. So looking at this, AI can play a very important role in helping understand uh, how a user is interacting with the system, how is he entering the system, which sources are we sourcing the data from, and how the automation should take place. And ultimately, all of these processes which are done manually now can be done by the system. And when you have a good data set to work on, ultimately it helps you with your risk management aspects, helping you understand forecast risks. If a better data will lead to better understanding of how you are performing and how you should be performing, and help you with all sorts of regression and forecasting. When we talk about forecasting, That's where every organization today is focused on in terms of ultimately coming up with their carbon neutrality. Or many organizations have mandates on that they would become carbon neutral by 2030, water positive by 2040, and so on and so forth. So, but while organizations have made those mandates or targets or goals, uh, how are we really going? How are we performing on those aspects? So, can we use AI to tell us whether we are on path? Yes, the answer is yes. Right now, the AI, we need not actually use multiple data sets to create our own data visualizations. Now, it's so easy that you can just tell the system what kind of visualization you want to see, and even the systems have become so intuitive that they use AI models to read through your data and ultimately present you analysis that you can see on the screen. You can also enter aspects like my business is going to grow by 10% every year. I'm going to acquire this company. So how are my emissions looking like? What I need to do for a pathway to net zero? What kind of initiatives I need to run within my organization? What kind of investments? And whole lot of map curves and many forms of analysis can be done through intuitive data analytics. So that's where organizations are now using these kind of AI solutions, which can actually give you analytic that will help you in your informed decision making process, and ultimately in your reporting as well. So on that note, I would like to introduce you to an amazing panel that we have, and the core of this conversation is going to be around that. And I'll hand it over to my colleague Ambalika, who will moderate this session for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aditya, Nutan, and Siddhartha. Uh, Welcome everybody on this engaging session about AI and automation. Uh, Thank you again for joining in and sparing your valuable time for this conversation. To introduce the panel today, and before I do that, I'm going to be your moderator for the session. Myself, Ambalika Gupta. I'm Director Sustainability at Snowkap. I come with an experience of decade plus in sustainability and different sustainability roles, right from shop floor to the board strategy sessions. So it's an evolving field, and over last 10, 12 years, sustainability has really evolved right from its nascent stages of being a policy, non-financial disclosures to becoming mandates. Now, on panel today, we have Rajendranath Goswami. He is Vice President, Global Business Unit Head for Digital Engineering, Energy and Sustainability at Bosch Software and Digital Solutions. Raj comes with 25 years of global experience in business strategy, technology development, and strategic partnership. He leads the charge in AI, Gen AI, Edge IoT, cloud computing, digital twin, and energy solutions. Passionate about sustainability, he drives ESG-focused digital engineering initiatives that shape the future of technology and responsible innovation. Welcome to the panel, Raj. We have our next panelist, Abhishek Prasad. He is Managing Partner, Cornerstone Venture Fund. Abhishek comes with 23 plus years of experience in investments, portfolio management, M&A, and growth strategy. As the founder of Cornerstone Ventures, he's built a successful first fund, backing innovative startups and delivering strong returns. Now raising a $200 million second fund, he focuses on AI, Web3, next-gen enterprise tech, and will significant commitments already in place. Before Cornerstone, he led investments at Reliance $250 million Gen Next Ventures and held key roles at IBM, Accenture, and Unilever. An IIM Bangalore graduate and entrepreneur at heart, he previously scaled a venture to a remarkable turnover before a successful exit. Welcome to the panel, Abhishek. It's a pleasure to have you. And introducing our third panelist, Rajesh Patel. He's the CEO and co-founder of Snowkap. Rajesh is a seasoned entrepreneur with 30 plus years of experience. He is renowned for driving business growth and pioneering digital transformations. He has led the development of cutting-edge tech solutions that prioritize sustainability, positioning himself at the forefront of innovation. As the leader of Powerweave and founder of Snowkap, along with his social enterprise Treeties and Golden Mile, Rajesh champions eco-conscious technology that creates meaningful impact. A visionary in AI-driven ESG solutions, he is redefining how business leverages AI and automation to optimize sustainability reporting and decision making. A warm welcome to all the panelists. It's a pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you.
And before we
Pleasure.
kick off, thank you so much. And before we kick off, some general housekeeping rules. I would encourage attendees to drop in their questions in the chat. At the end of the panel discussion, we will take questions, and we'll have the panelists respond to them personally. You can address it to specific panelists as well, if that is an area of interest. So as we kick this off, and Abhishek, if you permit, I would like to start with you.
Sure.
It's eventually all about money, right? So, businesses are built for money, they should scale for money, and responsible businesses is all about continuing to make that money. So, I want to understand that, from an investor's perspective, where do you see the highest return on investment in AI-driven ESG solutions, whether that's cost savings, regulatory advantage, or long-term brand equity?
Excellent question. Thank you. And thank you for having me, everyone. And that was great context set by both the teams here. You've stolen all my points, right? So, but let me just talk a little bit from an investor's perspective, right? I think the motivation to drive ESG and ESG across our investment portfolio is what comes with more maturity as you go through your investor journey or your fund journeys, right? Right in the beginning, you're usually seeing this as a framework or as a task or as a pain, but over time, this becomes a very interesting tool, not only for efficiencies that you can drive across your portfolio companies, but also for positioning yourself and your companies as best in the breed, best in class. What also we are seeing increasingly over the last decade or so, we've seen a massive shift in how much focus has moved towards ESG compliance and ESG frameworks from global institutional investors. That's something that is forcing us to become more and more mature in the frameworks that we push down to our portfolio companies. And this is where the role of AI then starts unlocking. And this is where we start feeling a little bit excited about the opportunity that AI brings to us. Because even for our portfolio companies, ESG reporting is usually seen, and you can imagine these are high growth startups. They're very busy, trying to clock their revenues or trying to keep the lights on because there's a lot of shortage of capital. They're not stable businesses. And if you tell them, hey, listen, you got to follow these ESG frameworks and you got to report on these and you got to collect this data, it becomes quite a pain for them. And there is resistance and you got to constantly push and do those kind of things. But with AI coming in, and if we have tools which can make it seamless, not only the collection, the reporting, the assessment, but make it seamless even for us in terms of staying on top of how quickly these things are moving from voluntary to mandates, that's where we see a big opportunity for us. It not only changes the way we are able to collect this data, it not only changes the quality of the data or the speed of the data, but it also prepares us for what to do, which is beyond what is required, right? And some of that becomes a big USP for us, especially when going global as portfolio companies or raising capital from global institutions. So a big role, and we're excited about adopting a lot of these tools going forward in this journey.
And I'm sure, as you kind of close your second fund, we'll see a lot of that kind of investment happening
Yes.
at Cornerstone. So we'll keep close watch. Move as a follow-up question, Raj. So we've understood how investors basically look at AI, and it definitely is of so much relevance given the current landscape and innovation, the way technology has been evolving. That was always the aspiration of the mankind, if I must say. How, as a leading engineering company, right, and Bosch has been also at the forefront of innovation, right? How successfully or what are the opportunities at Bosch or the use cases where you really see AI being leveraged more from an execution perspective, like making life easy? Because we've heard so much, previously from our colleagues here about data challenges and integrations and new regulations coming up. So how does kind of Bosch happens to bring all of this together?
Thank you. Great question, Ambalika, and greetings to my fellow panelists. So it's a pleasure being here. Now, back to your question. I think Abhishek and others already alluded to some of the points, and I want to extend the use of AI beyond just the collection of data and processing of data to actually how do we close loop the systems. Yeah. So the data that's flowing in is reflective of your current state of affairs, but you also have a strategy from your as is to be. Yeah. And I would like to talk about how we, as Bosch, adopt AI or various other technologies to achieve that to be state. Yeah. Every company announces its carbon net neutral goals and carbon zero goals, and to achieve that, you need consistent focus and effort to fine tune your systems to achieve that level of sustainability savings. Yeah, and to do that, I could, and from my position, I would say we are both a practitioner as a part of the larger Bosch group as an engineering company. At the same time, I also lead a focused business towards advising clients on how to adopt technology for sustainability. Yeah, so it's just a practitioner to an influencing to eventually a consulting role that I have, and that gives me a pivotal position in also understanding which among the practices are more effective, because you could do a lot of stuff, but then you have only so much time to do the right stuff and not do everything or not try out everything. So we have used technology effectively in terms of, let's say, the right data collection at the source, not upstream, but right at the source. Yeah. How do you utilize technology in optimizing your operations? One way of achieving sustainability is switching into more green technology, but the other one is to also minimize the gray and the so-called not clean technologies, right? So optimizing the usage. For example, we have a product called Phantom, which helps across the complete supply chain of or the flow chain of energy to identify losses and how do you optimize that, right? If you understand, if you can measure them, you can optimize it, and that's how you achieve better results. If you look at companies using water, yeah, water as a resource, right? Even achieving water neutrality or even water positive in terms of inflow, outflow, uh, you know, recirculation of water. All of this helps companies improve their footprint. Then when you look at scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions, we have systems using technology where we help companies measure them accurately. Yeah, reporting can happen accurate only if the data inflow is clean. Yeah, and I think these are some of the core areas where we have been continuously adopting, whether it's in the manufacturing side of our company or also how our products are used by our customers. I think all of this in sum total, I see gives a massive advantage, and the technology layer brings more transparency, brings more credibility, yeah, and brings more accuracy to your whole journey of from your as is to be. Yeah, that I would
I
say
mean,
has taken us through so far. Yeah, and I'm sure it can work for others as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, just to check, I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Hello? No.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Raj, for that insight, because honestly, you can reduce or you can improve your efficiencies or you can drive any reduction only if you have the right parameters to track and there is a right system to track. And you spoke about, right data collection at source. I think that's where most of the industries and sectors are moving. So smart meters, IoTs are actually a movement in that direction. But there is a risk that's also associated with AI. And just trying to be the devil's advocate here, coming to you, Rajesh. Um, AI agents are kind of the buzzword today, right? And you've seen as a part of your journey how AI has evolved. So Rajesh, is it more retrospective or forward looking? And what do you see AI agents playing a role in shaping the sustainability decisions?
Thank you, Ambalika, and hi, everyone. Great to be here. I think the initial context was well said, which is that AI generally focused, Abhishek, as you said, on measuring where we are at. Raj, as you said, what's the as is state? And I think a lot of AI today is directed towards compliance, towards baselining, towards gathering data, reporting, and giving a sense of what the current state is. Whether it's compliance is like BRSR or you're looking actually at your emissions, your supply chain emissions, I think there's a lot of AI that's going into addressing that part. But just moving on, looking at the future where you go from reporting to achieving those change states, right? That's, I think, your question. And AI itself has moved very rapidly. It's astonishing to believe that GPT-3 was introduced in 2020. And then came RAGs, and then came agents, and then agentic systems. And that's all in just under 4 years. So it's a very fast changing space. And for a lot of us, just wrapping our heads around what each of these things means and how do we bring them into the organization is a challenge. But I think to simplify, one way, Ambalika, to look at this change is that AI in the past was primarily diagnostic in the context of ESG. We just discussed that, right? What happened? How do I report it? And so it gave companies great insight into what happened. But I think today, if you look at generative AI agents and agentic systems, I think they're helping businesses to anticipate what could happen, and in some cases, even advising what should happen. Therefore, the idea is to transform complex sustainability challenges into sort of manageable actions and decisions that get you somewhere. So, to your question about AI agents, I think looking forward, AI agents really work well for dynamic, multi step tasks that lead to accomplishment of a goal. And we'll kind of unlock that sentence a bit more. But I think that agents can potentially help to speed up decision making, which means look at the insights that this phase of ESG is generating, which is the reporting, the data mining, and so on, and then use those insights to unlock faster sustainability transitions. Right? I think a good way to look at it would be to kind of just go through an example. Let's say you've done your reporting, you're an FMCG company, you understand that your shampoos are quite emissive. And a lot of that emission comes from your shampoo bottles. And you're now wanting to look at a zero emission shampoo bottle. So let's say imagination meets science, and eventually both of these are going to clash into reality. Is such a bottle possible? Will people buy it? Now you have the current state of the process, right? You throw a lot of human intelligence, and of course, some systems at this problem. It's not that this is a new problem. It's been addressed with a great deal of human expertise and non-AI systems, partly assisted AI systems. But let's look at this idea of an agent. And I just want to describe an agent very briefly. I'd say agents are independent, autonomous decision-making entities which work persistently over a period of time on these complex tasks, iterative tasks, and come up with an outcome, which is what makes them fundamentally different from the general AI we've been discussing so far. So let's say you invoke an agent to make sustainable zero emission shampoo bottle. And this agent now has to deal with a variety of challenges. First of all, several factors, materials, manufacturing, the use phases, the end of life, the recycling, and all of that. And it's looking at each factor quite deeply. And today, agents are being developed to do these things. So I'm not talking science fiction. Let's look at materials. You decide you want to do bioplastics, cornstarch, sugarcane. What's their chemistry? How do they interact with the shampoo? what's the predictive outcome of these two materials colliding inside a package. Or you want to work creatively with ocean plastics. By the way,
Yes.
I mean, on that,
Rajesh, I'll just do a little time check there
yeah, no,
because
I'm going
you
to
gave
toddle
me a
off a
great
little bit.
lead to segue into another follow-up question
Yeah.
that I have on
I
my
was hoping
radar.
to
So
stop because I think we all need sustainable shampoo bottles. But let me fasten the whole thing. From materials to chemistry to reusable packaging to recyclability to recollection, that's a complex set of dynamics to come up with a designed bottle. And today agents do that. Now you come up with a set of viable options in one day, what otherwise might have taken maybe a month. It might have taken 100 man months of cost. And what you have is 4 or 5 viable bottles. You 3D print them. That's downstream technology. You use AI to actually market test those bottles. You get AI agents to give you feedback on the usability, viability. You use financial agents to tell you how to manufacture, how viably. Let me stop there. You can extend this use case of agentic AI for execution and transformation very quickly, whether it's transportation, shampoo bottles, energy transitions, and more. Over to
I
you.
actually have a follow-up question to that, Rajesh, but I'll come to you in a bit. So, but thank you for bringing that transforming complex challenges, speeding up transition, analyzing large data sets. Uh, but Abhishek, if I may bring an investor, perspective into play. So, how you as an investor and you, I mean, assuming that's a bias that I'm operating with, that you are an investor who just understands, like, let's say P&L, what works, what not works, and how do you, or how does any fund for that matter navigate this landscape of we are all into sustainability, but it's constantly evolving. There are new jargons coming in, from carbon neutral to carbon positive to carbon negative to net zero. So how does a fund kind of navigates that increasingly upcoming commitments about carbon neutrality, and how much does, as an investor, you kind of weigh that against the kind of, let's say, plain pure profits?
Again, important and interesting question. And I think the whole, there's an evolution happening. Okay, let me put it that way. This concept of ESG, obviously, it's heavily on E, but there is S and there is G. And that plays a significant role for us as investors as well, because it's not limited to climate and carbon neutrality. There is a bunch of governance beyond that. There is a bunch of data that we track in terms of employment creation, in terms of diversity, in terms of those kind of challenges as well, that our startups, as they mature, they need to come up to scale, and they need to be able to really become organizations of the future. It's sad that investors are seen as these guys who are looking at P&Ls alone, and that's all they care about. Where's the return, where's the IRR? And it's funny that we report a lot of that. But any reasonable investor wants to actually not just build returns and financial outcomes, but also companies of the future. What has made us come into this profession is really the desire to build a better future, to really back passionate entrepreneurs, to do a lot of that kind of engagement. Our day-to-day job is really working hands-on with these guys. And one area that we feel we have seen a step change over the years is really the understanding that our founders and the teams within our startups, and the appreciation they have for ESG factors, right? It's not just limited to a reporting uh, concept anymore. In fact, there are situations where we are also doing a lot of sentiment analysis as a part of our S, saying how's the team feeling, how things looking within the organization. We like to go and spend time with our companies, not just at founder level, but at the lowest possible level, where our teams can really engage with them and capture some of that data. Today, that is again limited by one, our capacity, our own maturity to be able to, care about those factors and tap those factors and reuse those factors for our investment decisions or for decisions that we make in terms of topping up our investments in existing companies. But tomorrow, like, Rajesh Bhai was just pointing out, and agentic AI, of course, is something that we are constantly studying and constantly getting worked up about, because first it's too cool, then it's too commoditized, and you have to find, where those applications. And I love the word that Rajesh Bhai used earlier, which is context, right? Agentic AI in context is where it becomes super powerful. As long as, if you're doing mundane work, then it's basically a run to the lowest possible commoditized price, that you can achieve with this agent versus that agent platform or agentic platform. But when you have the right context, that is where you're able to unlock these additional opportunities of unlocking value, leveraging, some of these factors that exist. So I'll give you one example, a quick one, and I am mindful of time. But if you, and we talked a little bit about supply chain and things like that. One of our companies is in reverse supply chain management, right? And they started actually as an e-waste management company. It's called Blue Birch, or Green Enabled is their registered name. Now these guys basically said, hey, anyone who has, laptops to discard or any, electronic consumables to discard, we will pick that up and get it discarded. Soon they realized that there's a massive, massive problem for retailers, for OEMs, for marketplaces to really get rid of inventory which has been returned or get rid of unsold inventory. And that's where I think their journey of building that solution, which had a massive commercial opportunity unlock, because it is not just helping you reduce your carbon footprint, get you to zero carbon, those kind of things, but it's actually unlocking so much working capital that's stuck in your reverse supply chain, right? And in the process of doing that, their digital platform not only leverages various types of AI capabilities, I'll not call it agentic yet, but AI capabilities, whether it's somebody who's looking at that product, taking a picture, and that, the platform is assessing what's the condition of that product, whether it's a phone or a TV or a laptop, from how do you create a packaged bidding platform where you're selling thousands of these bundled into one on a platform where auctions are running, right? All of this, by the way, is a commercial usage of AI to really reduce massive carbon footprint and unlock a lot of, I would say, working capital. So for example, the customers are Amazon, Flipkart, Chroma, Reliance, Whirlpool, you name it, and everyone's using that. And that's the kind of impact meaningful, commercially oriented solutions can create while enabling massive, reduction of carbon footprint. So we are constantly looking for those kind of opportunities where there's a fair mix of both of these.
Yeah, thank you for that response, Abhishek. And you very rightly said we happen to look at sustainability, and let's, for lack of, you know, better terminology, let's just say ESG, right?
Yeah.
We happen to look at them in silos,
Yeah.
right? But it makes no sense how much reduction you've done if your community where you're operating does not have access to clean water or good air. And we happen to only talk about climate change and carbon, but there are 9 planetary boundaries and ocean acidification, land use changes, in fact, fresh water. I think Nutan here, my colleague, would agree, just because you're doing water conservation today and you are zero liquid discharge or you're water positive doesn't mean you'll have water for your operations in future. But thank you so much for that insight. But moving on, Raj, right? So we heard agent AI, we heard how investors go beyond just PNL and try and look into how innovation really drives the responsible business piece. But let's just talk about carbon, and let's just talk about energy transition, right? For any company to become to be on its journey to be net zero, energy transition is the first go-to goalpost. Okay. And we understand that India has been aggressively investing in EVs, battery storage, grid modernization. and there is an automation and AI expertise parallelly happening as well. So how do you see these industries or transition evolving over a period of time? And I'm just going to point it, Raj. Sorry, we might have to keep it crisp. But yeah, sorry for that.
Message received. So, Ambalika and to the panel, yeah, I think you have all heard of the push from India. In fact, India has made some commitments in the COP forum, right, in 2022 itself, in terms of adoption of green energy and when we want to achieve our net zero goals. The world believes that India could do better, yeah, because 2070 is a far away target. We could be more aggressive about it. But nevertheless, I think in terms of doing what we say we want to do, India as a country, we have done significantly well. Last year, I think we just overachieved our solar deployment goals, energy generation goals, right? But that's not just enough, because when we talk about green energy, it's also important to ensure that how you ensure utilization of this green energy all through the supply chain. And that brings other dimensions into the play. One is decarbonizing the grid, right? That's a very important initiative which is ongoing. Another one is reduction of losses. Yeah, there's tremendous loss of energy which happens in terms of what we call TNC losses, technical and commercial losses, right? And ensuring that we can more effectively utilize the energy that we generate to reach the masses is also in a way, helping us optimize the need for energy generation, especially from coal. So I think that's another key initiative which is already ongoing. We are working in the Digital India initiative to help the country and the Niti Aayog achieve some of this. So we are hands-on on this activity, and we see the initiative, the push from the government agencies to speed up and achieve this, which is very positive, I would say. Third one, I think a very recent development, but nevertheless already active distribution companies within the country are looking at storage to handle peak load shaving strategies, and also to ensure that there is a proper storage and distribution of the green energy, which is cyclical, whether it's from wind or whether it's from solar, right? They are dependent on climatic conditions, and they are dependent on the time of the day and the season of the year. So that's why there's a lot of focus on deploying a lot of large energy storage setups. And I'm sure this is going to make a big difference in terms of how we are able to more effectively utilize green energy. Yeah. So, and of course, if you talk about grid balancing, grid management, and eventually my prediction for the future is that the generation and the consumption, the distribution will actually come closer. Yeah. So generation will happen much closer to where consumption is. And with that, of course, the traditional losses will be minimized. But generation will happen from multiple sources. So the distributed energy source methodologies have to be adopted. And this is where massive level of AI and Gen AI systems are required to automate this process, because it is humanly not possible to manage these multiple sources between the generation, the source, and the sink where the consumption happens. So I think I would like to say these are the three key points I would like to highlight for what India is doing today to help decarbonize the grid, decarbonize the consumption, and move more and more to green energy and sustainable sources of energy.
Thanks for that response, Raj, because I think you kind of gave us a glimpse into how things are evolving at a policy level with the kind of work that you are involved with Niti Aayog in consulting, and also that's very interesting that the generation will move closer to the source so that the transmission losses are reduced. So, and honestly, I haven't thought about it, but also given how dynamically or how radically the climate change is happening, right? I'm just wondering like how the storage setup would evolve over a period of time, but I'll park that as our conversation one-on-one for some other day. But kind of doing a follow-up with you, Rajesh, from the first question that I asked about agents, right? AI agents. So you gave a very interesting example of a of a sustainable shampoo bottle. And of course, that's lovely. But in context to ESG and as we stand today, right? We all are aware that there are so many agents that help you write your reports, right? How do you preserve the originality? Because then it eventually, what you report in your ESG report or sustainability report, it's also a lot around the work that you do and kind of, storytelling in a way about the work that you've done, right? So how would an agent, or what are the risks that you see with something like that? Or how can companies continue to ensure the originality? Because there are, offshoots of such kind of agents that are being used to write enormously beautiful reports. Yeah.
Thank you. Good question. I'm going to kind of bend the question a little bit more and kind of
Rajesh,
use.
we are on time check because I have two crazy questions to ask everybody, which I'm kind of itching for.
Do I
So
have
we'll
a couple of minutes or?
Yes, you have absolutely, sir. 2 minutes.
All right. So if you've given me a couple of minutes, and let me use originality as the key term here. Let me give you one example. I think preserving originality in report writing has a lot to do with culture, manifestation of what your real story and narrative is. Those can't be copied. Examples of what you've achieved, case studies, and it's the content, it's not its representation. So I'll park that very quickly. But to take up the point, Raj, you were making, and Abhishek, you were making, just very quickly, if you look at India 2070 backward, uh, about 80% of India 2070 is as yet not made. To make that, you need innovation. Let me give you one example. I know of a company in Bangalore called Praveg. It's produced perhaps the highest density of power. Raj, you might know Praveg, right? Highest density of power in the EV space that is measured in terms of, let's say, kilowatt per kilogram of battery. And it's been highly AI driven. All right. If you look at nature-based sequestration, I know of companies who are working on creating microcredits for carbon using purely GIS, which is a very different paradigm to the way today carbon credits are created. Raj, you're coming to distribution losses. There are so many agents in AI that are looking at identifying energy leakages hotspots without actually touching the equipment or the grid. So, Ambalika, I think the way to preserve originality is to think originally. If you think of a shampoo bottle that needs to be zero emission, AI is there to support that goal. If you want a zero leakage emission or transmission infrastructure, AI is there to support that role. If you want a reverse logistics company that is taking waste, which is thrown products, and preserving that for reuse and recycling, AI is there. That's where the originality is. It's not just the content. And AI agents, agentic systems are primed to take center stage as India transitions and the world from where it is at to continue to grow, but grow on the basis of sustainable innovations. I think that was less than 2 minutes.
Yes, and thank you so much for that response, Rajesh, because this is where actually the experience comes through, right? Yeah, I mean, if I may put it, bluntly, we can have like the best degrees coming up, but this is where the experience comes through in the sense that the originality of the idea and the entire concept around sustainable design or design thinking is where it really the AI need or your thought needs to seed in, and then AI can take it and run it. But if you've never thought anything original, that's kind of going to be a challenge. But that said, I mean, you and I are not even in the same city right now, so I don't know how you're kind of seeing my follow-up questions. But I want to ask all the panelists here, and the reason is because you happen to mention about 2070 and backwards, Rajesh. I'll start with you. Let's fast forward 5 years, and right, and we are just like running short on time here. But let's fast forward 5 years, and how do you see AI fundamentally transforming the ESG strategies, operations, board decisions, behavioral changes, everything? And this is a question for all the panelists. give me that blue sky thinking, because growing up, I never thought about AI to even exist. So it has to be some crazy blue sky thinking in there.
So very quickly, I think we can do this as a baton race. If I go and speak a little bit like we're in the mutual fund scenario, I'm speeding up. I'm saying the first thing is that all of reporting and compliances are one click. There's no longer that hunt for data. 5 years on, that's a dead model. All the reporting is done. Insights and dynamic recommendations, along with their cost to market, time to market, return on capital, impact on environment, is a one click. Boardrooms are highly educated because there has been a tremendous amount of training. Markets have moved forward because a lot of the agentic agents that are driving buy sell decisions, Abhishek, are going into sustainable portfolios. Okay. Innovation is looking not at return on dollar, but return on environment. And I could continue, but let's pass the baton. So, Abhishek, over to you. Please build on
Thank
this
you.
narrative.
Thank you. You've covered a bunch. And I think, again, 5 years later, I think the first slide deck of any pitch deck I receive should be the ESG metrics. Hopefully, we'll get there. So, democratization is what I am looking for, where people, forget mandates. It's all voluntary. They take pride in their ESG metrics, and that becomes their biggest USP. That's the kind of mindset and the maturity that investors should have. And just as on the funnier side, I think we talked new materials, we talked all of that. But 5 years later, we might be having a panel discussion on there is too much AI and it's ruining all our metrics, right? So, how can AI impact the ESG metrics of the world is something that will be a big problem that we all need to probably be debating 5 years later. Yeah.
So, Abhishek, from AI to HI, human intelligence, I think let's bring that back.
Yeah.
That's never going to go out of fashion. I think that's one of the messages of this. Over to you, Mbalika. Oh, sorry, Raj. Your cast on the next 5 years. He's looking for the next 5 years.
We can't hear you, Raj.
Raj, yeah. I think there is a network issue at Raj's end. So we'll wait for Raj to get back. Or but I know, Raj, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So I was about
Yes.
to, thanks.
Your view on next
Yeah,
5
so
years.
thanks for Abhishek rolling the question to me. Next time, Ambalika, I want to be the first one to answer this kind of questions. Yeah, because looks like Rajesh and Abhishek almost covered all of it. Yeah. Nevertheless, my view about 5 years, or why 5 years, even prior to that. Yeah, I expect to see that the whole ESG process has to become more proactive than reactive. Today, a lot of it happens reactively. Yeah, I think this is the big change we want to see. And of course, it will be an integral part of our existing business processes. Yeah, by virtue of all the automation and the AI is obviously in place. Maybe I may not agree fully with Abhishek when he says we have too much of AI, because in the last 3-4 years, the degree to which we have seen change happen and the speed at which it has happened has actually brought us forward. Yes, there are certain downsides to that, yeah, but nevertheless, I see massive impact, positive impact, with the adoption of AI and automation. So
Yeah. Thank you for that response, Raj. But you also said that you want to be the first one to respond. So your wish is granted.
thank
I'm
you.
going to ask
Not sure what's
you
coming.
yes, and I'm going to bring this controversial question up. So the thing is, like, we all know the kind of energy, the AI models use in processing data, and the multiple models and language sets. It's kind of, I'm not a tech person, but those are the words we hear, right? And then there is, of course, there is so much of flexibility, there is so much of intelligence, there is so much of time saving effort, and everything else that comes when you use an AI. But then also there is a trade-off of more energy consumption.
True.
Right? I just want to hear your individual views, and these are very personal views I'm requesting for, and we'll keep it 30 seconds crisp. 30 seconds, Chris.
Okay, so it's a valid question, and it's a genuine trade-off. AI's energy consumption, as much as it's happened, I think I would say it did consume a lot of energy, as in the processes, in the methods in which this training of the models used to happen. What you call the large language models, yeah. But I don't see that remaining that way for two reasons. Yeah, I think humankind is more intelligent than the AI. We are finding new ways of training models with much lesser cost and much lesser energy consumption. This is the number one. At the same time, this whole concern from the past is going to redesign how we consume energy in the future, because there is a big move to see that all such activities related to AI, and trust me, AI is going to bring a lot of benefit for the humankind. We are going to move to consuming renewable energy more and more as far as possible. I think these are the two main dimensions I would say is going to impact us. With that, I will move back to you.
Raj, and thank you so much, Raj. But this was for Rajesh and Abhishek. If you have anything other than those
Quick
points.
view. See, I think the average, you can fact check me. I think the average Google query is about 0.3 watts of energy consumption. The average AI query is 3 watts. So that's a 10x consumption. But if that 10x consumption adds up to about 1% of total energy consumption today from AI, if that 1%, Raj, makes your vision of a renewable world true, then the multiplier on that was 99. Yeah, because AI is inextricably linked to mankind's transition to a more sustainable future. So the leverage is very, very strong. If Abhishek was investing in this kind of a company, I think the money would be down right now. Over to you, Abhishek.
Exactly the point. That's all I had to say. That the controversy I was trying to raise on Balika was we might have too much AI and therefore too much energy consumption. So you've covered that now. But my point is that creates investment opportunities. That creates investment opportunities in orchestration layer. That creates investment opportunities in selection layers. You don't need LLMs like Raj was mentioning for everything. You have this concept of SLMs and all of these kind of things emerging, but eventually that's what an orchestration layer does. And for me, all it means is many more new investment opportunities. So
Thank you so much for keeping it crisp. And I mean, it definitely gives a fresh perspective to how certain information are just being plainly reported and not the opportunity around it is being reported. That said, we have quite a few, questions from the audience. I'm sorry, we are running short on time. We'll take just one question, and this one is specifically for Rajesh and Abhishek, you by Sanjay Chaudhary. And you both need to kind of do it in 1 minute. So how is the adoption of AI in ESG audit and certification process and by PE investors for ESG performance assessment and post-green finance project impacts? So basically,
I'll quickly take the first one,
think,
pass the second one on to you, Abhishek. I think the use of AI in all assurance is that AI is today inherently used to flag data sources for reporting back to the assessor and the auditor. So you can no longer make facile claims. They can be driven back n layers to the source of that data and the verifiability of that data, whether it's a document, a database, an internal data repository. And that has made the audit function very, very much more efficient across the board. So that's the answer to the first part. Abhishek, over to you on the
version
PE
one,
piece.
if not, version one is where we are right now in terms of the sophistication of reporting that comes to us, in terms of again, the ability of people to appreciate the need for doing that. So long way to go. And I think, like we've concluded today, AI will help accelerate that because it'll make everyone's life easier to achieve these goals.
Raj, would you like to add anything to that?
So I think both our panelists have already mentioned the same. I guess AI is going to further help accelerate the process which you have currently. Yeah, and I think it's going to also ensure a lot of mundane parts being covered with less of human error and less of reporting challenges. I think that's transparency is going to surely impact the likes of Abhishek. in ensuring that they put the money in the right place with the right level of information or the right depth of information, right? So for me, that's a huge benefit.
Thank you so much. With that, we come to the conclusion of today's webinar. I absolutely had great fun quizzing the veterans. Not every day you get a chance to do that. But besides that, as a point, we definitely heard very interesting perspective about the whole agentic AI piece, AI functional and efficiency roles, and the ETL processes, human-centric creativity. So mankind should not lose hope. We should be all the more creative. And then the whole investment perspective. So thank you, our esteemed panelists and Team Protiviti, for making this webinar absolutely a success. I'll be at the end of the session, we will roll out a feedback form to all our participants. Please do share your views, what you would like to hear. And thank you so much again. Thank you so much for the time, and all of you have a good day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.